So I just got back from seeing Novocaine in theaters, and if you're new to this channel, we do honest reviews. I'm not doing any crazy edits or clickbait to try to make you stay or watch it. This is just me telling you guys like it is and if this movie is worth watching. I'll be going through different parts of the movie, saying what was good, what was bad, and giving my final ranking at the end of the video. If you like this type of normal content, consider subscribing. Pretty much immediately, we start getting a romance arc between Jack Quaid's Novocaine and Amber Midthunder's Sherry. Their chemistry was actually pretty good, and it was at this point in the movie where I thought this may actually be a good movie. We learn more about his condition of not being able to feel pain, and despite a few cheesy lines, the dialogue actually seemed natural and it worked. We see how this condition affects his life, and it makes for some pretty clever gags, like him taking a shot of hot sauce as his way to get back at his middle school bully. However, 25 minutes into the movie is when pretty much the main plot of the movie starts, and it's not great. There's a robbery in the bank that he works at, and they kidnap Sherry. So the rest of the movie is basically Jack Quaid hunting down Sherry in an endless amount of basic fistfights. But we'll get back into breaking down what's good and bad with those action scenes soon. First, I just want to say in general, I think that this is a perfect role for Jack Quaid. He comes off very likable and funny, and even though he does the same shtick for every role he does, it works here. However, I don't think this movie was made that well. I describe everything here as basic. Like the car chase he gets into after the bank robbery was just basic driving fast and turning. But the first fight scene we get is in the kitchen. Novocaine is basically Deadpool with his sarcastic quips as he's fighting. It's funny, but because of Deadpool, that trope is a little played out for me personally. There's maybe one cool camera move in the whole scene, and the rest of the camera work for the action is pretty basic, and it doesn't necessarily make it boring, it just definitely doesn't make it exciting. The one cool part of the scene is the final kill, and that's what I think this movie would have actually benefited more from, is more fun, R-rated, absurd violence. I think that would have given the movie more intention and style if they leaned into that. We then find out that Sherry is actually the sister to the robber, and it's just funny because we find this out because he calls her sis, which who in real life calls their sibling sis? A simple workaround to this is instead of saying something like, "You always liked this candy, sis," you can say, "You always liked when mom brought home this candy." Anyway, it's not a big point, it's just something in general that movies do that's cringy to me. But we then get another mildly boring action scene at the tattoo parlor. And look, when I say mildly boring, I don't mean to hate on these scenes, it's just that most of the scene is just basic punching. Then at the end, we get some cool stuff, like for the kitchen scene, him sticking his hand in the fryer, and for the tattoo scene, him getting the glass stuck in his hand and then punching, and those gags save the scene and honestly the movie itself, because the trope of him not getting affected by pain is basically the entire basis for all the humor in the movie. It's funny and interesting when they do it, but when they don't, the movie kind of suffers. I kept going back and forth on whether the writing for this movie was good. Like, I knew the directing wasn't anything special, but when I was just trying to think about it in the context of just writing, I was torn. There were clever moments, like how he called Sherry a good actor at the bar, and then it turned out she was really acting the whole time, or how they made Novocaine's friend ride a motorcycle to set him up wearing a helmet so the detectives think that it's Novocaine getting away. It's just good foresight for the characters that I can appreciate. But then it will cut back to the dialogue of the main villain and his sister, and it's just brutal. Honestly, that villain guy, Simon, was brutal. Not really his acting, but just his character and the writing for him, brutal. But yeah, so then we get into the booby trap scene, which was cool. The interrogation stuff was funny. But after the robbery, the kitchen scene, the tattoo scene, the booby trap scene, we get into the third act of the movie where Novocaine goes to save Sherry. He finally gets there, and we get more punching and some extensions of the climax with the detectives getting shot. Then it's another basic car chase with them just driving, and then, you guessed it, another fistfight. And this guy Simon, the bank robber, he's like the Hulk. He gets shot twice, and he's still able to fight and run. And honestly, at that point, I was just waiting for the movie to end. So overall, I think the movie was fine. Jack Quaid honestly is the only good character in the movie and kind of carries you through it. Like I said before, I would have preferred if they leaned more into the R-rated action. I think the writing was fine, some funny parts, some other cringy parts. The directing was not great, nothing crazy, just kind of basic shots, no crazy cool cinematography. So while I don't think this movie was that horrible, it's probably not worth most people's time watching it unless you have nothing else to do and just want some popcorn. I'm giving this movie a 2.5 out of 5 stars, and if you guys are curious, you could check out my letterbox for my other rankings, but let me know in the comments what you would rank this movie and what you thought, and we can talk down below.